have not been with us, we are in Acts chapter 9, starting in verse 32. I titled this sermon, I don't title all my slides, I normally title them something, but I don't necessarily tell you what the title is. The title this week is Imperfect Peter. That might be a strange thing to title a sermon, but I think we're going to learn a few things about Peter. This is definitely a story completely about Peter. We just finished talking about Paul and Paul's conversion, and we summed that up last week with verse 31, and pretty much the entire sermon last week was on verse 31. We're starting with verse 32 of Acts chapter 9. So I'm going to read Acts 9, 32 through 10, 22. Now it came about that as Peter was traveling through those parts, he came down also to the saints who lived in Lydia. And there he found a certain man named Aeneas, who had been bedridden 8 years, for he was paralyzed. Peter said to him, Aeneas, Jesus Christ heals you. Arise and make your bed. And immediately he arose. And all who lived in Lydia and Sharon saw him, and they turned to the Lord. Now at Joppa, there was a certain disciple named Tabitha, which translated in Greek is called Dorcas. And this woman was abounding with deeds of kindness and charity, which she continually did. And it came about that at that time she fell sick and died. And when they had washed her body and they laid it in an upper room, and since Lydia was near Joppa, the disciples, having heard that Peter was there, sent 2 men to him, entreating him, do not delay. Dorcas used to make while she was with them. Peter sent them all out. He knelt down and he prayed. And he turned to the body and he said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. And he gave her his hand and raised her up. And calling the saints and widows, he presented her alive. And it became known all over Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. And it came about that he stayed many days in Joppa with a certain tanner named Simon. Now there was a certain man in Caesarea named Cornelius, a centurion of what was called the Italian cohort. A devout man, one who feared God with all his household, and he gave many alms to the Jewish people and prayed to God continually. About the 9th hour of the day, he clearly saw in a vision an angel of God who had just come into him and said to him, Cornelius! He fixed his gaze upon it, and being much alarmed, he said, What is it, Lord? And the angel said to him, Your prayers and alms have ascended as a memorial before God. And now, dispatch some men to Joppa, and send for a man named Simon, who is also called Peter. And he is staying with a certain tanner named Simon, whose house is by the sea. And when the angel was speaking to him and departed, he summoned 2 of his servants, and a devout soldier of those who were in constant attendance around him. And after he had explained everything to them, he sent them to Joppa. Now the next day, as they were on their way and approaching the city, Peter went up on the housetop about the 6th hour to pray. He became hungry. He was desiring to eat. But while they were making preparations, he fell into a trance. And he beheld the sky opened up, and a certain object like a great sheet coming down, lowered by 4 corners to the ground. And there were in it all kinds of 4-footed animals and crawling creatures of the earth and birds of the air. The voice came to him, Arise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, By no means, Lord, for I have never eaten anything unholy and unclean. And again a voice came to him a second time, What God has cleansed, no longer consider unholy. This happened 3 times, and immediately the object was taken up into the sky. And while Peter was greatly perplexed in mind as to what the vision had been about, behold, the men who had been sent by Cornelius, having passed directions for Simon's house, appeared at the gate. Calling out, they were asking whether Simon, who was also called Peter, was staying there. And while Peter was reflecting on the vision, the Spirit said to him, Behold, 3 men are looking for you, but arise, go downstairs, and accompany them without misgivings. For I have sent them myself. And Peter went down to the men and said, Behold, I am the one you are looking for. What is the reason for which you have come? And they said, Cornelius, the centurion, a righteous and God-fearing man, well spoken of by the entire nation of the Jews, was divinely directed by a holy angel to send for you to come to his house and hear a message from you. I know that was a really long passage. Thank you for bearing with me. So what's happening here? What's the story? What's going on? Well, if you remember where we are in the story, there had been persecution in the church, and Christians have scattered north and a little bit west. They've gone all over the place, and that's why Paul had taken off to go try to capture these people and bring them in. And it was during that mission that Paul had been confronted by Jesus Christ, and now Paul has been converted. And then Paul spends 3 years in Arabia. We looked at that last week. So things have been going on, but Peter has started traveling to witness. Now he's still in Judea. Here's Judea, and here's Samaria, and then above that is Galilee, and then down here is like the road down to Ethiopia. And that line between Judea and Samaria, maybe you'd be looking at it backwards. He is all the way to the sea. He's always close to the city, close to the border of Samaria, but he's still in Judea. And that's where he's witnessing. That's where he's doing his thing. And God is obviously doing some amazing miracles in Peter, right? Look, there's only 5 people in the Bible that God raises people from the dead through. It's a pretty elite club, right? Elijah, Elisha, Jesus, Peter, and Paul. That's it. We were talking about, we listened to that song, Peace with God. It was really moving. Look, Peter is involved with bringing peace to people, and more than that, people raising from the dead. This is big stuff. Imagine the joy and the excitement of someone who was paralyzed for 8 years not being paralyzed anymore. Imagine the joy and excitement of this godly woman who everyone loved so dearly, and she's dead, and now she's not dead. This is awesome. Peter's on top of the world. Things are going great. God is obviously moving through Peter. We look at verses 32 and through 35 of chapter 9. Looks like a whole lot of people became Christians. I got the right? Yes. Yeah? Verses 36 to 43. Looks like a whole lot more did. I gotta get to the right side. It came about that he stayed many James. There you go, 42. And it became known all over Joppa, and many people believed in the Lord. That was verse 42. And then back in 35. And all who lived at Lydia and Shannon saw him, and they turned to the Lord. That's a pretty cool number, or word, all. That's a lot. I don't know. Well, all means all. So a lot of people came to Christ. Something interesting is about to happen, and we're going to have to pay attention to the details to understand what it is that's happening. So there's another character in the story named Cornelius. Cornelius is a Roman, at least. Probably an Italian. If you notice, it said he was part of the Italian cohort. So probably from Italy, which is where Rome is centered. He's a centurion. I don't know what that means. Centurion means he was a non-commissioned officer. In fact, he and I had about the same rank. So me and Cornelius were like that. He had about 100 men, and he didn't start out a commissioned officer. So commissioned officers, those were rich guys that bought leadership. So they had a bunch of money and they'd spend it, and suddenly, boom, 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 we'll give you an army to lead. That was commissioned officer. Cornelius started at the bottom. Started as a common soldier. Worked his way up. Finally got to the point where he was in charge of 100 men. He's one of those hard-working guys. It says that he is a God-fearing man. What is that? It says he was a God-fearer. Well, there were people in the world that had decided that the God of the Jews was the true God. Not only was the God of the Jews the true God, but that the Old Testament is true. They believed the miracles, they believed what God had done, they believed that that was the real God. So why weren't they Jewish? They weren't Jewish for one fact. They had not been circumcised. That's it. Other than that, they believed all the stuff the Jewish people did. And it says that he had given lots of alms to the Jewish people. He had been a supporter of the Jewish people. That's what we learn about Cornelius. We learn that in chapter 10, verse 2. A devout man, one who feared God with all his household, and he gave many alms to the Jewish people, and he prayed to God continually. God calls Cornelius. And we see that in verses 1 through 7. Now let's imagine, for those of you who have been with us so far in these studies of Acts, let's imagine that now Paul has called Cornelius. And what does that look like? An angel of God had come to him and said, Cornelius, fixing his gaze upon him, as in verse 4, being much alarmed, he said, what is the Lord? And he said, your prayers and alms have been answered as a memorial before God. And I have dispatched the man to Joppa and sent for a man. Let's say that the man that God named was Philip or Paul. If that had happened, there wouldn't be any story that comes next about a vision. Why? Well, when he told Philip to go down and witness to the Ethiopian, what did he do? Left immediately. He was ready. Paul was ready. Paul met Jesus. He started telling people about it immediately. He went to Arabia for 3 years. I can't imagine he didn't tell about them then either. But Peter isn't ready. Peter's not ready to witness to this guy. Not. And he ends up, God has to send him a vision for him to be ready. And he sends him this weird vision of the sheet coming down from the sky. Now, I've been told, I've heard many sermons about this sheet, and I've had a couple different topics that the sheet is supposed to be about. One is a sermon about how this sheet symbolizes that the eating laws of the Old Testament, God's abolishing those, we don't have to worry about them, so the sheet is really about the eating. I don't agree with that necessarily. Although, if we're going to talk about that, this is an interesting proof text about that topic, but I don't think this is what it's about. I've also heard, I don't know what your Bible has, my Bible has this little notes, like at the top, it'll have what the next section's about, and it gives you these little clues like headings. My heading says the conversion of the Gentiles. Except that it was over 3 years ago now that Philip witnessed to an Ethiopian eunuch. In 3 years, we already know that there was a church that was started in that area. I imagine there's probably already the nucleus of a church started now in 3 years. Paul's been in Arabia for 3 years. I can't imagine he didn't share any with the Gentiles there. I don't think this is new to the Gentiles anymore. I don't think we can make an argument that this is really about the fact that the gospel is finally getting to the Gentiles. This is actually about something else. This is about the traditional Jews accepting Gentiles. It's not about the gospel getting to them, it's about them accepting the others. That's what this is about. An interesting thing to talk to you about Samaritans. Earlier in Acts, Philip went up to Samaria, he started talking to Samaritans, and then later Peter and John went up. No problems. They witnessed to them, everything was cool, and they laid hands on people received the Holy Spirit, everything was fine, there was one blessed, and they rebuked him, but they didn't have a problem with the Samaritans. And yet, the Jews hated Samaritans. Here's why. Let me tell you the difference between the centurion and Samaritans. Okay? This is going to be interesting, I promise. The centurion feared God, believed in God exactly the way the Bible said when he was not circumcised. The Samaritans had taken Judaism, mixed it with all kinds of other stuff. Kind of done make your own religion at home thing. You know, you've got your own home religion kit. Take what you'd like and throw it in there. And they've taken some Judaism, and they've taken some other stuff, and they've taken whatever. Hey, look what we got. But they were circumcised. That's one of the things they picked from Judaism to do. You know, as we read Galatians, we read some of these other things, and we read about this word circumcision, we talk about it, and we say, well, and it's really kind of symbolic of the entire law, and it is, but let me tell you something else. That actual factor all by itself was a big deal. Huge. And it was so big, Peter was not getting over it very easy. He was not ready. In fact, we're going to find out that the other ones don't get over it very easy either. And so, Peter could go to the Samaritans even though they had demolished the Jewish religion and polluted it. That was okay. They were circumcised. This centurion over here who is willing to take this at face value, believe what it says, believes in the true God, and wants to do it right, he's not circumcised. And Peter is going to have a problem. And so are the Jews in Israel going to have a problem. We're going to see that in a second. By the way, what is it about Peter and the number 3? Right? 3 times Peter denied Christ. 3 times Jesus had to say to Peter, Peter, will you feed my lambs? If you love me, feed my lambs. Yes, I will. If you love me, feed my lambs. Yes, I will. He had to do that 3 times. And now he's got to show him the 3 sheep 3 times. I don't know why he's got to do it 3 times. Maybe Peter's really stubborn. He really, maybe that's Peter. I don't know. Got to be 3. So God had to provide this sign to Peter. It's a sign of correction. It's a sign of fixing. It's a sign to wake him up to a problem that he has. And here's what he says in the sign. He says in chapter 10, verse 15, what God has cleansed, no longer consider unholy. That, by the way, that's a command. Do you see that? Do you see the way it's worded? This isn't an explanation. This isn't a talking point. This is an order. What I have said is clean. You no longer consider unholy. What I've cleaned, you no longer consider unholy. This is a command. It happened 3 times. Then immediately the object was taken up into the sky. You don't command people to do things that they are already doing. Typically, you don't have to. He's getting this command because he's not. Look, Peter considered the Gentiles, even this God-fearer, unholy, unclean, unredeemable. That was his problem. He was there remember, there's the Great Commission. Remember that part? And Jesus himself said, and take my gospel to Judea, Samaria, and the utmost parts of the world. And here's Peter. Judea, check. Samaria, check. Utmost parts of the world. Not if they don't get circumcised, not. Better get circumcised first. He was prejudiced. That word has come up this morning a couple times already. Peter was prejudiced against anyone who was not circumcised. It would come back as an issue later in his life. Let's see some proof here. Let's go to Galatians chapter 2. That's to your right, if you don't know. Galatians chapter 2. Where's the weapon? This is Paul, and the Galatians as a church was having a tough time with the circumcision issue. Okay? He's talking about it very specifically. And Paul is about to talk about rebuking Peter about this. And the word he's going to use is Cephas, but Cephas is referring to Peter, this Peter. So in Galatians chapter 2, verse 11, but when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, because he stood condemned. For prior to the coming of certain men from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But when they came, he began to withdraw and hold himself aloof, fearing the party of the circumcision. And the rest of the Jews joined him in hypocrisy, with the result that even Barnabas was carried away by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not straightforward about the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas, that's Peter, in the presence of all, if you, being a Jew, live like the Gentiles and not like the Jews, how is it that you compel the Gentiles to live like Jews? We are Jews by nature and not sinners from among the Gentiles. Nevertheless, knowing that a man is not justified by works of the law, but through faith in Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Christ Jesus, that we may be justified by faith in Christ, and not by the works of the law, since by the works of the law no flesh will be justified. Peter gets this vision. Peter gets this vision and gets it fixed long enough to witness to Cornelius, and it's fine. Later in his life, he's going to struggle with it again. He's going to struggle with this prejudice. In this last story here in Galatians, what happened is that he was pressured by Jewish purists to stop eating with the Gentiles. Eating with the Gentiles was a problem for a Jew. It was against their policies and laws. In fact, I'll get to that in a second. By the way, there are people in the world who say that Peter was the first pope and popes are infallible. This is an interesting story in light of that particular belief. It looks to me like Peter had flaws. Peter was the first pope, and the first pope had flaws. He had some stuff he needed to fix. So there's a question here. From here, here's a story of the fact that Peter was having an amazing, victorious time. But Peter had a problem. Do you remember the story of the eunuch? Remember I even said something about the fact, wasn't it weird that the eunuch was going here, there was Judea in the middle, and up here was Samaria, and God had to call Philip all the way down from up here to go get to the eunuch. I didn't really explain why. Just couldn't call Peter. Peter wasn't ready yet. Peter wouldn't talk to him. And neither would the other Jews in the city, because they were still prejudiced. That's why God had to reach all the way up into Samaria to get Philip to witness to this guy instead of the people who were closer. But here's the good news. This is verse 23 of Acts chapter 10. I didn't read it. This is what Peter does. And so he invited them in and gave them lodging. He's obedient. What do we do with the story and how are we relating this to us today, here, now? What does this have to do with us? Number one. Just because you can see God's power working through someone doesn't mean they have it all together and they're perfect. We have a tendency in the church, we get these superhero Christians, and maybe they're on TV, or maybe they write a bunch of books, or maybe they've had a lot of other really great experiences, and the power of God's working in them, and like, oh, awesome, they must have it all together. I have no news for you. Nobody has it all together. Nobody. This is Peter, who God chose to lead the early church, just had someone raised from the dead in his life. That seems pretty awesome, and he's not perfect. God uses imperfect people. If he didn't use imperfect people, he wouldn't use anyone. And this actually comes into play in our attitudes about each other. You know, 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus have some instructions about leadership and qualities that people are supposed to have before we let them have leadership. But you know what? There's a balance. We need to respect those principles. But if we're not careful, we can start expecting to find perfect people. And if you try that too hard, you're just going to disqualify everybody. If you're saying you got to be perfect to serve God, well, we might as well all leave. And I will be chief among you. I am not perfect. I tried to pick a figure that might be a good comparison for somebody we've recently heard about. Anyone in the room know who Mark Driscoll is? I've got some books of his in my house. He wrote some fantastic stuff. I still think the stuff he wrote was fantastic. Mark Driscoll recently has gotten into trouble. He's gotten in legal trouble. He's been accused of some things. Here's some of the things that were in the indictment. Domineering, verbally violent, arrogant, quick-tempered. He was known for using occasionally inappropriate language from the pulpit. He was also known for often using inappropriate language with the staff. And that's hard. We have this guy who is super successful, and I use his name partially because he's still a person that I think did amazing good, and I think that he has good left to do. I think he messed up. Is everything that Mark Driscoll wrote or said wrong because he made these mistakes? No. Did God work through him, and can God still work through him? Yes. Is Mark Driscoll a sinful man that needed correction? Yes. Are there people whose faith was shaken because of his mistakes? Yes, and that's actually unfortunate. Let me tell you why. Why is our faith tied to a person? Let me put it a different way. A lot of you know me, and we've been here about a year. If I failed in a catastrophic way, would it shake your faith? Would it just make you disappointed in me? See, if it shakes your faith, then your faith is in the wrong thing. I don't deserve your faith. I'm not worthy of your faith. I cannot carry your faith. I can't do this. I'm not worthy of it. Your faith has got to be in God. And if we have this person that we think is an awesome Christian and they fall, if that shakes our faith, we need to ask ourselves some hard questions about why our faith was in that in the first place. So my first point, looking at Peter, is that Peter is in this great place spiritually, but he's not perfect. He has mistakes, and he's going to make more. And does that make Peter not God's chosen leader of the church in Jerusalem? No. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means he's human, and we've got to remember that all of our spiritual leaders are human. All of our spiritual leaders are capable of making mistakes. And we can't put our faith in the people. Our faith is in God. Here's my second point. If you've gone years and years without God revealing some major work in you, it isn't because you've arrived. It's because you've quit growing. If you're chilling, if you're like, woo, it's great. I haven't felt convicted in anything in 3.5 years. I remember the last time it was terrible. I hope never to feel that again. Newsflash, you haven't arrived. You think it was the last thing God had to fix in Peter? I don't know who they were. The Bible doesn't detail all of it. I know he wasn't perfect. I know I'm not perfect. Peter's doing well when God reveals this to him. He's growing. He's in reliance. God is doing things to Peter that God's never done before. Peter's in a place of growth, and then God reveals stuff he needs to fix. That is really how this goes. When we are working with God, when we are pushing out, when we are acting in obedience, that's when God is going to show us more things to work on. And look here's what Peter could have done. Oh, well, it's me. I have discovered that I am prejudiced. I'm no longer worthy. I will go home. Someone else will have to carry on. No, what did you do? Oops. Guess I needed that. Time to go to work. The right reaction to God bringing our faults to us is to fix it and go. As quickly as possible. With as little emotion, a little as carry on, just do it. Just handle it. I've been corrected. God showed me I need to fix. Great, let's fix this. Let's get on to the next thing we got to do. That's what Peter does. He doesn't lament over it and throw a big fit over it or decide he's disqualified for the ministry over it. He goes, oh, yep, got it. He moves on. If God keeps showing you sin in your life to fix, it isn't because you're falling apart. It's because you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. If you're like, man, when is God going to quit? I mean, when am I going to get there? Never. Not in this lifetime. It's a process that we grow through, and we move on to it, and we make mistakes, and God shows us more, and we keep pressing in, and we make steps, and it's the way this life goes. This is the way it goes. It went that way for Peter, and it goes that way for me. I could have made this specifically about prejudice, and if you've got a problem with prejudice, you should handle it. But I think the big problem is bigger than just prejudice. We have our faults, and whatever they are, when we're come face to face with them, we need to fix them. Here's my third point. Just because you work on something early in your life, don't assume it will stay fixed. Oh, God and I dealt with that. I don't have a problem with that anymore. That's not what happened to Peter. And you know what? That's not what happens to me. I know that there are areas of my life that God has confronted me on, and we've dealt with it, and if I am not careful, I will slide back in to that same problem. For me, it can be fear, sometimes it's doubt. If I'm not careful, my self-esteem can drop. God doesn't want that. God made me a new creation. He wants me to be focused on what we're doing. He doesn't want me to go, oh, woe is me. That doesn't helpful. Don't ever think, God and I dealt with that before it's done now. In fact, I've heard people tell me that. I said, well, I think you're really struggling in this area. Oh, no. God and I dealt with that 5 years ago. It seems to me you're dealing with it again. You can't just shut the door, put the lid on it, and think it's done. Here's another part of this. We can be so judgmental of each other and our failures, can't we? Especially if, oh, we all thought you fixed that, and here you are doing it again. Judge one another. Let's all understand. We're all like Peter. It isn't always easy. All of us fail, and some of us, sometimes we all go back to the pit, and we all visit it again, but we just have to repent and get back to what we're doing. And when we stand around and point fingers at each other because they're not perfect and they're still struggling, that's no good. So we're trying to take this passage, but I hope we're thinking of this passage. of all, I hope that your spiritual walk is strong and healthy and growing, that you can see God working in you. I hope that's where you're at. That's where Peter was at. Even if it is, it doesn't mean you don't have stuff to work on. You do. And you know what I like about this story? Because every story should come back to Jesus. It's God that points out to Peter what the problem is. Peter's not looking for it. Peter isn't he doesn't even have an inkling of it. It's God who comes into Peter's life, and God initiates, and he comes into Peter's life and he says, Peter, you have a problem, and I'm telling you, whatever I've declared is clean, you are to consider holy. Well, that's how the Holy Spirit works in us too. We are going on our way, and we're feeling like we're doing awesome, and we're feeling like everything's cool. Are we listening to God inserting into that? No, actually, you still got stuff to fix. And that's who initiates it, through the Holy Spirit to us, and brings us conviction, and brings us things to work on. And maybe the last thing would be this. There might be someone in this room who thinks, I understand about Jesus, I understand about Christianity, I understand about all of that, but the truth of the matter is, I just don't feel like I do good enough to take that name. I don't feel like I qualify. I'm too broken, I'm too messed up, I still make too many mistakes. I'm going to have to get a little bit better before I can do this Christian thing. But that is not what this is about. If we wait until we're perfect, we will never be Christians, because we will never be perfect. Not going to happen. So as we close, I just want to remind you of a few things. We all have to come to God exactly the way we are and simply accept His grace to forgive us of our sin. And in that journey, God will change us and God will grow us. And if we're obedient, God will do amazing things in our lives. But that doesn't end the journey of being fixed. It doesn't end the journey of God finding things that still need to be dealt with. And it doesn't stop. We can't get complacent, and we can't get to this point of our lives where we think we must be doing really, really great, because that would God correct me in a zillion years. If that's you, maybe what you need to be wondering is what I need to do to listen to God better. Because I guarantee you there's still things to work on. If you're not hearing it, maybe you're not listening. No matter what we do, we can get back on the horse. We can accept God's forgiveness. We can decide to handle it. We can press on and do what we got to do, because that's the next part of the story, and it's awesome. We're going to cover that next week. Because Peter doesn't die over this. He doesn't get crushed over this. He doesn't go home crying over this. He corrects it, and he moves on, and he does something. And that's exactly what we do. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the example.